o'clock. It's exactly 12 after 9 o'clock, and we're now going to be talking with Kevin Bloom. He's a writer and a journalist, and he's going to talk to us about something really interesting. I was reading the article in the Daily Maverick and learned one or two things regarding the Jewish religion, not in depth, but a brief or really a very slight understanding about Jew being born Jewish, but being born in a secular setting, and then later on going on to connect or find in the Torah. But we're going to leave that to Kevin to explain to us. And also, why is it that he found this video very interesting, and what does it mean for Jewish people? I mean, we often refer to Jewish people and then we refer to Zionism. Does this in any way smack of Zionism? And if it does, where and how does he believe that comes across? Kevin, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're Jewish as well, aren't you?
I'm Jewish, yes.
Okay. Very interesting article indeed. How did you happen on this video? And you're Jewish, so you'd understand the nuances better than I would, obviously. What is telling or interesting about this video? And it is, of course, between two rabbis, one an older one, that is, of course, Rav Katz, and the other one is Reb Adam. I presume they're based overseas. They're not South African, are they?
They're based in Jerusalem. Neither of them were born in Israel, as far as I understand. But before we get into that, I would just like to preface this conversation with acknowledging that you guys are behind humanitarian journalism, which is why I so readily agreed to the interview, and also acknowledging the horrors we've seen over the last weekend. The 9 children of the surgeon in Gaza that the charred bodies arrived in the hospital she was working at, and then waking up this morning to images of a Palestinian young girl in burning in a fire. I am a vehement anti-Zionist. Like Gabo Maite, I believe that Zionism will be looked upon as one of the greatest disasters in Jewish history. And I believe the Zionist ideology is doing more harm to the Jewish tradition than any outside influence ever could. And this is playing out on a daily basis. So within that context, those 2 rabbis, specifically the older one, I came across him for the first time last year. I was forwarded it by a friend, and it was an attempt to explain what was going on in the Holy Land from the perspective of Torah, which is the equivalent, obviously, to Islam's Quran. It's the holy book. It's the 5 books of Moses, where what's spoken about there, and specifically in the book of the prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel, is a end of days scenario, Gog and Magog, a war that'll take place in the Holy Land. And this is core to our rabbinic tradition. It's core to our articles of faith. And this rabbi, Rav Daniel, who is known as a great Kabbalist, which would be equivalent to the Sufis in your tradition, so a mystic, was dealing with this question. And I found the way that he dealt with the question last January very interesting. And so I would come back and visit his website. And the reason I do that is because Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism is my last remaining connection to the tradition of my birth, for a range of reasons, but mainly because Kabbalah in its essence for me looks beyond issues of religion and sect and looks at the human soul and is a beautiful ancient insight into what it means to be human. And I began to find, the more I would visit this rabbi's various social media platforms, that there was a specific Zionist element. Although he wasn't identifying as a Zionist, he was dividing the world into us and them, into the good and the evil. And it was very clear who he meant. And he was making no distinction between Palestinian resistance fighters and Palestinian terrorists. And initially, this disappointed me, and then it began to anger me, because for me, it's symbolic of even a religious bent that is, as far as I'm concerned, and this is the opinion of one, I know I'm not alone, but anything that misinterprets a holy book to justify the sort of wholesale, horrific, genocidal violence that we're seeing in Gaza right now, to me, is not holy at all.
Okay, your picture's just frozen. I don't know if you can hear me. It seems to have righted itself. No, your picture is still frozen. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Thank you indeed for your humanity. And let us, from your point of view as a Jewish person, how do you distinguish being Jewish and Zionism and Zionist? And what do you believe has happened over time? Would you say this went right back to World War II, or even predates that era, where Jewish people who embrace Zionism believe that it's their birthright to do so, and their birthright to perhaps kill, destroy entire generations of people whom they see as a threat to them or to their beliefs? Is it about that, or is it about supremacy, perhaps white supremacy? Kevin,
Julie,
did you get my question?
unfortunately, I think it's about. I did get your question, and I hope you
Okay.
can hear me. The signal is not good,
Yes, I know.
which is unfortunate, because I think this is a very important conversation. Um, Julie, I think it's about all of these things. I think at its core, what's driving this is Jewish trauma, and the Holocaust industry. This is what Dr. Gabor Mate, who's one of the great intellectual and moral Jewish voices of our time, and himself is a Holocaust survivor. He sort of gives the quip, there's no business like Shoah business. And Shoah
Sure.
is the Hebrew word for Holocaust. And I remember, as a young boy and then a young man at Jewish day school in Johannesburg, Jews are re-traumatized by the Holocaust to an extent that is completely unnecessary in service of any sort of humanity, but is necessary in service of the Zionist project, because it's that trauma, it's that never again trauma, it's the images of the Holocaust, it's visiting Yad Vashem, visiting the Holocaust memorials, all the Holocaust museums that are around the world. And this is not to say that that isn't true. It is. And it was horrific. And 6 million Jews were slaughtered in absolutely horrific circumstances. But the Holocaust is now being weaponized. It is quite clear that when we're seeing images of starving, emaciated children in Gaza, like we've started to see in the last 2-3 weeks because of this blockade, you have to be totally numb and desensitized not to draw the comparison between those pictures and pictures out of a Nazi death camp. And Zionism will be looked upon, to quote Gabor Mate again, as perhaps the greatest disaster of Jewish history. And specifically because the Holocaust has been weaponized like this in order to justify the atrocities that are being committed as we speak. And, we saw a poll that came out in our Aretz a few days ago. 82% of Israelis, according to this poll was conducted by Penn State University in the US, support the removal of Palestinians from Gaza. That's a traumatized, desensitized nation. This is not every Jew on the planet, and I think a distinction needs to be drawn between Zionists and
Absolutely.
anti-Zionists. Zionists cannot speak on our behalf. They cannot speak on my behalf. I want the South African Jewish Board of Deputies to make a statement immediately condemning what's going on. Immediately. They refuse to.
Mm-hmm.
The South African Zionist Federation too, the Office of the Chief Rabbi too. Not in my name, and I'm not the only one. I'm just one who speaks.
Kevin, undoubtedly, you're one of those marginalized Jews here in South Africa, because it does seem as if a large majority, I'm not quite sure, I don't have much contact with Jewish people in South Africa, but having said that, I'm kind of wondering what the divide looks like. Are the Jews in South Africa more pro-Zionist or just ordinary Jewish people who have humanity in them, given that their forefathers suffered in the Holocaust, which none of us are denying, obviously? What's your stance on that? I could sit here all day talking to you. And the one other thing I do also want to mention, I'm a great admirer of Gabor Mate. I'm hoping and praying that one day I have the pleasure of hosting him on my show. Yeah.
Perhaps we can interview him together, really. I'd
Oh,
love to
that's
interview him
wonderful.
together.
Yeah, we
But
could have a two-way.
That would
Did
be
you
great.
get my? Yeah, we'll work on
I
it.
get your question. So the Zionist Federation and the Board of Deputies claim to speak for 90 to 95% of South African Jews. I don't think that's true. What they're basing that on is some polls that they've conducted where they ask loaded questions like, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? Does that make you a raving murderous Zionist? I don't think so. What I'm starting to see is I know many Jews. I'm 51 years old. I've lived in South Africa all my life. And I know the Jewish community and they know me. There are a few of them, no, it's not a small number, that are shutting me down, that are getting quite vicious with me. It happens pretty regularly that I'll get attacked on WhatsApp or social media, online, or even in a public place. But so many of the people that I grew up with who, because of the threat of being
Kevin, the picture keeps freezing. I'm going to
they're
have
starting
to
to say that so I think more and more Jews in South Africa are starting to wake up to how horrific this is. And I think more are going to be finding their voice. And I don't think 95% of us are Zionist. I would like to think the number is way less.
Once again, I commend you for your humanity. We just need more of this in the world, not only Palestine, all around the world. There's just far too much fear and hate going around. Let's get back to this video because we're going to have to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. And I'd like to get to the heart of what you're coming across and what was meant by the Jews being born secular, but later found the Torah. Does that perhaps, with due respect, indicate that when they go that route, that's when they kind of Zionism starts appealing to them?
No, Julie. So that's a good question, but the short answer is no. Just to give a bit of context, the word is Baalei Tshuva, so you become a master of return. And you're born secular and you find Torah and this becomes your spiritual path. But that's a path of Torah. It's not necessarily a path of Zionism. And you'll find in Israel, in Jerusalem, and also in Brooklyn, you'll find the ultra Orthodox who were born religious. They don't recognize, many of them, I would say millions, out of the 15 million Jews in the world. They're not that many of us. Maybe 2 million, I might be wrong, but somewhere around 2 million are probably ultra Orthodox. So these are the guys who live, these are the black hats and the big payouts, and they don't recognize the state of Israel at all. And many of them are, millions of them are anti-Zionist. So, and they see the Zionist project as what they call a Chilul Hashem, which means a desecration of the name of God, of the divine name. So there's not necessarily, again, to come back to your question, a direct correlation from finding Hashem, finding Torah, and becoming a Zionist. I would say it's the indoctrination in Israel and in Jewish schools around the world that make a Zionist. It's the indoctrination.
Yeah, like we have a school here in Pretoria where a lot of a Jewish school, apparently, where lots of this indoctrination seems to be taking place. The name just doesn't come to mind. But anyway, be that as it may, did I hear you correctly when you said that worldwide there's only, did you say 15 million or 15 billion Jews?
15 million. 15 million. That's all.
As in M for mother.
Yeah.
Globally, only 15 million Jews.
Globally, there's 7 million in Israel, 7 million in the US, and 1 million in the rest of the world. In South Africa, there's 35,000. Max 40.
Yet,
that's it.
And yet they seem to wield so much of power. How is that? Why do you believe? Is it because they perhaps fall under the category of perhaps being the most, the wealthiest nations in the world, the wealthiest people in the world? Doesn't matter where they reside.
Julie, here we need to tread very carefully, because here we can tread into anti-Semitic tropes. It's a question. It's a very big question. Why, if there are only 15 million Jews, is that such a surprise to anyone who hears that for the first time?
Okay, your picture's frozen again. Kevin, I think we're going to have to leave it there. The picture keeps freezing. We're going to have to reschedule this for another time, and soon. I lost so much of what you've been saying because of the picture freezing. Let me also hasten to add that I'm not anti-Semitic at all. So, even though I pose that question, has nothing to do with me being anti-Semitic. I'm not. Let me just wrap up with this. Let me wrap up with this final question. And that is, I grew up in the times of apartheid. I think you too, in your young years, were subject to the atrocities being played out here in our country. Do you not think that should have been a lesson for all of us, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and people of all faiths? We're all people of God. We all come from one source.
Absolutely, Julie. I couldn't agree more. And this white genocide nonsense that's going on, which is distracting from the actual genocide.
Absolutely.
And there's a whole subject there to get into. But I couldn't agree more, Julie. And thank you so much for your humanitarian. It comes across clearly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the interview.
Kevin, thank you indeed. It's people like yourself that gives us hope and gives me hope that the world, there is humanity, there is goodness, there is love in the world,
Mm.
and we can live peacefully side by side. God bless. I look forward to having an in-depth interview with you sometime soon, together with Dr. Mate. So look
If
out
we
for
can,
that.
that would be amazing. Thank
You
you,
take
Julie.
care. God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. 9:32 a.m. And I am so, so sorry that we had such problems with connectivity issues there. It was an interview that I would have stretched for as long as I could. Very interesting indeed, but we couldn't carry on with such a break in the lines. But we will try and have Kevin Bloom and other people, like-minded people on the show, and just get a better understanding of what this is all about. Zionism, being Jewish, being a good human being. Um, and I think we need to have more of such conversations. It is 9:33 a.m. We're moving along, more coming up on news and views, so please do stay with us.